The gladiator's body hasn't even stopped twitching when the blood merchants rush onto the sand of the Colosseum, clay vessels in hand, racing to collect the crimson pooling around his open throat. Outside the arena, epileptics wait with their families, coins ready, desperate to drink the blood while it's still warm, because Roman physicians swear that fresh gladiator blood is the only cure for the falling sickness. By sunset, this dead slave's blood will be in medicine vials, cosmetic jars, and fertility charms across Rome, selling for more per ounce than the finest wine. The same Romans who considered gladiators legally infamous, barred from citizenship, decent burial, or respectable marriage, believed their blood contained magical properties that could cure disease, enhance beauty, and guarantee virility. This wasn't some fringe superstition, but mainstream medical practice endorsed by Rome's finest physicians, practiced by senators' wives, and so normalized that arena programs listed blood merchants alongside food vendors. The gladiator might die as the lowest form of human in Roman society, but his blood became the most valuable fluid in the empire, revealing a disturbing truth about how civilizations treat those they simultaneously despise and desire. Chapter 1. The Medical Miracle Cure. The medical use of gladiator blood wasn't hidden in back alleys or whispered about in shame. It was prescribed by Rome's most respected physicians and sold in the medical district near the Forum. Scribonius Largus, personal physician to Emperor Claudius, wrote detailed prescriptions for gladiator blood in his Compositiones, the standard medical text of the 1st century. For epilepsy, he recommended the blood of a gladiator, drunk warm immediately after he's been slain, in the amount of 1 kyathus, about 45 milliliters, mixed with wine and frankincense, taken for 9 consecutive days during the waning moon. This wasn't folk medicine. This was the Harvard Medical School of ancient Rome prescribing human blood as treatment. The belief in gladiator blood as epilepsy cure stemmed from a complex understanding of vitality transfer. Romans believed epilepsy was caused by a deficiency of life force that caused the soul to temporarily leave the body during seizures. Gladiators who faced death constantly yet survived were thought to possess exceptional vitality. Their blood, especially when taken at the moment of death, supposedly contained concentrated life force that could replace what epileptics lacked. The violence of their death was crucial. A gladiator who died fighting released more potent blood than one who died of disease. The blood had to be fresh because vitality dissipated quickly. Congealed blood was medically worthless. Celsus, author of De Medicina, the only surviving complete Roman medical text, described witnessing epileptic patients at the arena. They fall upon the slain gladiator and drink his blood in greedy draughts, counting it most effectual to drink from the man himself, while warm lifeblood flows from his wounds. The practice was so common that special cups were sold outside arenas specifically for blood drinking, marked with medical symbols to distinguish therapeutic consumption from any accusation of cannibalism or vampirism. Parents would bring epileptic children to the games, not for entertainment, but for medicine, teaching them to overcome their disgust at drinking human blood because health mattered more than squeamishness. The collection process was systematized and commercialized. Arena staff called Haranari had specific duties regarding blood collection. They would monitor which gladiators were dying, assess the quality of their death. Violent deaths produced better blood than quick kills, and signal to licensed blood merchants when collection could begin. The merchants paid the arena a fee for collection rights, similar to modern waste management contracts. They used special bronze vessels lined with wax to prevent coagulation, and some added herbs or wine to preserve the blood's potency for a few hours. The blood was categorized by the gladiator's fighting style. Mamillo blood was considered different from retiarius blood, with varying medical applications. Physicians developed elaborate theories about which gladiator blood worked best for specific conditions. Young gladiators' blood treated youth diseases, Veteran fighters' blood helped with chronic conditions. Blood from victorious gladiators who then died was most valuable. It contained both triumph and sacrifice. Gladiators who died bravely, facing death without begging, produced superior medicine to those who died cowering. Some physicians claimed they could diagnose the quality of blood by taste, developing a sommelier-like expertise in human blood varieties. Medical texts describe the ideal blood as bright scarlet, sweet-tasting, without bubbles flowing freely, suggesting extensive experimentation with human blood consumption. The dosing regimens were precise and ritualistic. Patients couldn't just drink gladiator blood randomly. It had to follow specific protocols. The 9-day treatment Scribonius described had to align with lunar phases because the moon governed bodily fluids. Patients had to fast before consumption, abstain from sex during treatment, and avoid certain foods that might conflict with the blood's properties. Some physicians required patients to attend the gladiatorial games themselves, believing that witnessing the death that provided their medicine increased its efficacy. The psychological impact of watching someone die for your medicine was considered therapeutically beneficial. Beyond epilepsy, gladiator blood treated numerous conditions. Physicians prescribed it for headaches, believing it could replace corrupted blood in the brain. It treated impotence, transferring the gladiator's masculine vigour to weak men. Women drank it for fertility, absorbing the gladiator's life force to create new life. It was even used for mental illness, based on the theory that gladiators' ability to face death without madness could cure insanity. The applications expanded constantly as physicians discovered new uses for this miracle cure that conveniently required attending the games and supporting the arena economy. Chapter 2. Blood as Magic and Power. The magical properties attributed to gladiator blood went far beyond medicine into the realm of supernatural power. Romans didn't see a clear distinction between medicine and magic. Both involved transferring invisible forces between objects and people. Gladiator blood occupied a unique position in Roman magical thinking because gladiators existed in a liminal space between life and death, human and beast, sacred and profane. They were legally dead, civiliter mortuus, from the moment they swore the gladiatorial oath, yet physically alive and powerful. This paradox made their blood a powerful ingredient in magic that required boundary crossing between states of being. The gladiatorial oath, Sacramentum Gladiatorium itself, was a magical act that transformed the gladiator's blood. By swearing to be burned, bound, beaten, and slain by the sword, the gladiator consecrated his blood to the gods of the arena, Mars, Nemesis, and Diana. His blood became sacred through this oath, even as his person became infamous. This created a theological paradox that Roman priests struggled to explain. How could the blood of someone barred from temples be used in religious rituals? The answer lay in the gladiator's role as substitute sacrifice. In earlier times, human sacrifice to Mars ensured military victory. Gladiatorial games replaced direct sacrifice with ritualized combat, but the blood retained its sacrificial power. Love magic particularly prized gladiator blood. The Greek magical papyri, collections of Greco-Roman spells, include multiple recipes using gladiator blood for attraction spells. One spell requires mixing gladiator blood with the target's hair, burning it while invoking Venus, and burying the ashes under their doorstep. Another involves writing the beloved's name in gladiator blood on lead tablets and throwing them into the arena during games. The violence and passion of the arena supposedly transferred to romantic pursuits. Prostitutes reportedly bathed in diluted gladiator blood to increase their attractiveness. Even respectable matrons might secretly add drops to their perfume to enhance their husband's desire. Curse tablets, defictiones, found throughout the Roman Empire, frequently mention gladiator blood as an activating ingredient. The standard formula involved inscribing the curse on lead or bronze, sealing it with gladiator blood, and depositing it in graves or wells. The blood served as payment to underworld deities who would execute the curse. Archaeological evidence from the Roman port of Ostia includes a curse tablet, still stained with what chemical analysis suggests is human blood, though we cannot confirm it's specifically gladiatorial. The curse calls for a business rival to bleed out like the gladiator whose blood seals this tablet, suggesting the blood created sympathetic magic linking victim to gladiator's death. Protection magic also employed gladiator blood, paradoxically using death to prevent death. Amulets filled with dried gladiator blood protected against the evil eye, demons, and sudden death. Soldiers going to war might drink gladiator blood not for courage, but for supernatural protection. If they already carried death within them, death couldn't claim them on the battlefield. Pregnant women wore vials of gladiator blood to prevent miscarriage, believing the gladiator's tenacious grip on life would transfer to their unborn child. Children's cribs were marked with gladiator blood to ward off striges, vampire-like creatures that supposedly fed on infant blood. The preparation of magical gladiator blood followed specific protocols that differed from medical preparation. For magic, the gladiator's name mattered. Blood from a gladiator named Felix, lucky, brought good fortune, while blood from one named Mors, death, was better for curses. The weapon that shed the blood affected its properties. Blood from a sword wound was martial, from a trident was Neptunian, from a net was binding. Magicians claimed to distinguish these properties through the blood's colour, consistency, and even taste. Some became specialists in gladiator blood magic, advertising their services with signs depicting bleeding gladiators outside their shops. Chapter 3. The Beauty and Fertility Industry. The cosmetic use of gladiator blood represented Rome's most disturbing beauty secret, one that wealthy matrons paid fortunes for while publicly maintaining disgust at the arena's violence. Ovid's Art of Beauty mysteriously omits several recipes that other sources tell us contained human blood, suggesting even Rome's most libertine poet found some practices too shocking to record. But private letters and household accounts reveal that gladiator blood was a standard ingredient in high-end cosmetics, particularly face creams promising eternal youth and aphrodisiacs guaranteeing irresistible attraction. The most sought-after preparation was Sanguis gladiatorius juvenilis, young gladiator blood cream. The base recipe, found in a papyrus from Roman Egypt, required blood from a gladiator under 25 years, killed in his first year of fighting, mixed with white lead, honey from Attica, crushed pearls, and oil of roses. The cream supposedly prevented wrinkles by transferring the gladiator's youthful vigour to aging skin. Applied nightly, it promised to restore the bloom of youth to matrons past their prime. The white lead would actually create a temporary tightening effect while slowly poisoning the user, which users attributed to the blood's power rather than metallic toxicity. Roman brides had their own disturbing ritual involving gladiator blood and weapons. Pliny the Elder describes how brides part their hair with a spear that has been dipped in gladiator blood, preferably one that killed its victim. This ceremony, performed the night before the wedding, supposedly ensured fertility and male children. The spear, hasta caelibaris, had to have drawn blood in the arena, clean weapons lacked power. Wealthy families would bid on specific gladiator weapons after games, competing for spears that had killed popular fighters. The bride's hair, once parted, would be dressed with oils mixed with drops of the same gladiator's blood, creating a magical connection between her fertility and his vitality. The aphrodisiac market was even more lucrative and explicit. Roman pharmacopoeia, drug dealers, sold love blood in distinctive red glass vials shaped like phalluses or vulvas, leaving no doubt about their intended purpose. The standard mixture combined gladiator blood with Spanish fly, ground rhinoceros horn, imported at enormous expense, and wine aged in lead vessels. Users believed that consuming this mixture before sex would grant them a gladiator's stamina and aggression. Men reported experiencing the fury of the arena in the bedroom. Women claimed it made them insatiable. The psychological effect of believing you'd consumed human blood probably contributed more to arousal than any pharmaceutical property. Prostitutes were major consumers of gladiator blood cosmetics, viewing it as a professional investment. The suburban brothels had standing orders with blood merchants for fresh supplies after every game. Working girls would bathe their genitals in diluted gladiator blood, believing it would tighten vaginal muscles and increase sensitivity. They mixed blood into vaginal suppositories with honey and crocodile dung, following recipes that claimed to restore virginity's tightness. Higher-class courtesans added gladiator blood to their signature perfumes, creating unique scents that supposedly triggered primal attraction in clients. One famous courtesan, Cytheris, reportedly bathed entirely in gladiator blood mixed with milk before important clients, charging astronomical fees for men who wanted to experience a woman literally bathed in death. The fertility applications extended beyond bride rituals to desperate attempts at conception. Women who couldn't conceive would drink gladiator blood mixed with their menstrual blood during ovulation, believing this mixture of life and death forces would spark creation. Some inserted gladiator blood directly into their wombs using bronze syringes, risking fatal infections for the chance at pregnancy. Miscarrying women were told to drink gladiator blood immediately to seal the womb and prevent loss. The blood of gladiators who had fathered children before entering the arena was especially valuable, selling for 10 times the price of regular gladiator blood. Even more disturbing were the beauty treatments for children. Wealthy Romans believed that feeding infants drops of gladiator blood mixed with breast milk would ensure they grew strong and beautiful. Boys received more blood to enhance masculinity. Girls received blood mixed with dove's blood to balance aggression with gentleness. Children's skin conditions were treated with gladiator blood poultices. Teenage acne supposedly responded to masks of gladiator blood mixed with crocodile dung and sulfur. Parents who could afford it would purchase subscription services from blood merchants, receiving regular supplies of fresh blood for their children's beauty regimens. The preparation techniques for cosmetic blood were elaborate and often dangerous. Blood had to be processed within hours of collection to maintain potency. Cosmeticians would filter it through silk to remove clots, mix it with preservatives like natron salt, and sometimes ferment it with wine to create blood wine that could last weeks. Some practitioners claimed they could concentrate the blood's power through distillation, creating essential blood that was nearly black and sticky like tar. This concentrated blood sold for more than gold by weight, affordable only to the wealthiest Romans. Chapter 4. The Dark Market. The commercial infrastructure supporting the gladiator blood trade was extensive, sophisticated, and deeply corrupt. Licensed blood merchants, sanguinari, operated legitimate businesses with shops, warehouses, and distribution networks spanning the empire. But for every licensed dealer, dozens of illegal operators sold counterfeit blood, often with deadly consequences. The trade generated millions of sesterces annually, making blood merchants some of Rome's wealthiest non-aristocratic citizens. The arena wasn't just entertainment, it was a factory producing one of Rome's most valuable medical commodities. The legitimate trade began at the arena with officially sanctioned collection rights. Major amphitheatres auctioned these rights annually, with syndicates of blood merchants bidding millions of sesterces for exclusive access. The Colosseum's blood rights reportedly cost more than constructing a small temple. Winners received special passes, allowing them onto the sand immediately after fights. Ahead of the arena slaves who removed bodies, they employed teams of collectors, usually freedmen or slaves trained in quick extraction and preservation. A good team could drain a gladiator's useful blood in under 3 minutes, collecting up to 2 litres before coagulation made it worthless. Pricing depended on numerous factors that created a complex commodity market. A victorious gladiator, who was then killed by editor's decision, missio, produced blood worth 50 auri per litre. A defeated gladiator's blood sold for 10 auri. Young gladiators commanded premium prices. Veterans' blood was considered exhausted and sold cheaper. Specialty fighters like bestiari, beast fighters, had their own pricing category. Their blood supposedly contained animal essences that enhanced its properties. The blood of famous gladiators became collector items. When Flamma, a legendary Syrian gladiator, finally died after 34 fights, his blood reportedly sold for 1,000 auri per vial, with wealthy Romans keeping it in their private medical collections. The counterfeit trade was massive and dangerous. Common frauds included pig blood mixed with human urine to approximate the taste, or executed criminal blood sold as gladiator blood. Some dealers hired thugs to murder random slaves, selling their blood as arena blood to unsuspecting customers. The most elaborate fraud involved staging fake gladiator fights in private venues, killing condemned criminals dressed as gladiators, and selling their blood as authentic arena blood. These operations required extensive corruption, bribing officials to provide condemned prisoners and guards to look away. Quality control was nearly impossible. Rome had no agency verifying blood authenticity. Merchants developed elaborate authentication methods, sealed containers with arena stamps, certificates of origin, even bringing witnesses who swore they saw the specific gladiator die. But forgers replicated all these measures. Wealthy customers hired their own agents to attend games and supervise collection, ensuring they received genuine blood. Some developed relationships with specific gladiator schools, pre-purchasing blood from fighters before they died, essentially betting on their deaths. The retail experience varied dramatically by social class. Elite customers never visited blood shops directly. Merchants came to them with samples in ornate containers, conducting tastings like wine merchants. Middle-class buyers visited respectable shops in the medical district, where blood was sold alongside conventional medicines. The poor bought from street vendors outside arenas, often receiving diluted or contaminated blood that was more likely to cause disease than cure it. Some temples operated charitable blood dispensaries, providing free gladiator blood to epileptic children whose families couldn't afford treatment. Distribution networks extended throughout the empire, creating history's most macabre trade route. Fresh blood travelled in specially designed vessels, packed in snow from the Alps, reaching destinations within days of collection. Preserved blood in various forms, dried, pickled in wine, mixed with honey, travelled further. Alexandria became a major processing centre, where Egyptian embalmers' expertise in preservation created gladiator blood products that remained potent for months. Ships carrying gladiator blood received priority docking in many ports, their cargo considered medical supplies rather than trade goods. The corruption surrounding the trade reached the highest levels. Several emperors reportedly controlled secret monopolies on gladiator blood, using it to fund private expenses. Commodus, who fought as a gladiator himself, supposedly sold his own blood after staged victories, marketing it as imperial gladiator blood for astronomical prices. The Praetorian Guard ran protection rackets for blood merchants, ensuring their cargo moved unmolested through Rome. Even Vestal virgins were rumoured to secretly invest in blood trading syndicates, using temple funds to finance the highly profitable but morally questionable business. Chapter 5: When Christians Ended the Blood Trade. The Christian opposition to gladiator blood consumption became one of the early church's defining battles against pagan Rome, revealing deep theological conflicts about blood, body, and salvation. Christians faced a paradox. They celebrated drinking Christ's blood in the Eucharist while condemning Romans for drinking gladiator blood. This apparent hypocrisy became a major point of pagan criticism. Celsus, the 2nd century philosopher, wrote mockingly, "Christians condemn us for using gladiator blood as medicine, while they claim to drink their God's blood for eternal life. At least our blood is real, and our gladiators consented to die." Tertullian, the fierce Christian apologist, responded with a theological argument that would shape Christian doctrine for centuries. In his De Spectaculis on the shows, he argued that gladiator blood was fundamentally different from Christ's blood because it was tainted by violence, paganism, and demonic influence. Gladiators died for entertainment. Christ died for salvation. Gladiator blood perpetuated death. Christ's blood conquered it. But more practically, Tertullian recognized that Christians attending games to obtain gladiator blood were participating in the entire arena system: gambling, violence, and idol worship. The blood trade was inseparable from everything Christianity opposed about Roman culture. The Christian medical alternative movement began developing immediately. Christian physicians like Luke the Evangelist promoted prayer and faith healing over blood consumption. When that failed, they recommended animal blood or herbal substitutes. Lamb's blood became the Christian replacement for gladiator blood in treating epilepsy, theologically appropriate given Christ as the Lamb of God. Christian pharmacists created blessed blood preparations using animal blood consecrated by priests, marketed as spiritually superior to pagan gladiator blood. These alternatives were medical failures, but theological victories, allowing Christians to avoid the arena while maintaining hope for healing. The conversion of Constantine in 312 CE didn't immediately end gladiatorial games or the blood trade, but it began their decline. Constantine banned gladiators being sentenced to the arena as punishment in 325 CE, reducing the supply of fighters. He prohibited parents from selling children to gladiator schools, cutting off another source, but he didn't ban the games themselves. They were too popular and economically important. The blood trade continued, though Christian officials increasingly harassed blood merchants. Christian mobs began attacking blood shops, destroying inventory and beating merchants. The trade moved underground, operating through secret networks that resembled later medieval alchemy circles. The real blow came with Emperor Honorius's ban on gladiatorial contests in 404 CE, following the martyrdom of Saint Telemachus. The monk had jumped into the arena to stop a fight and was stoned to death by the crowd. Honorius used this incident to finally ban gladiatorial combat throughout the Western Empire. Without games producing fresh corpses, the gladiator blood trade collapsed almost overnight. Blood merchants faced economic ruin. Many converted to Christianity publicly, while secretly maintaining black market operations, using executed criminals' blood branded as gladiator blood. The transition period saw fascinating medical adaptations. Roman physicians who had prescribed gladiator blood for decades suddenly had to find alternatives or admit their treatments never worked. Most chose creative reinterpretation. They claimed the real medicine had been the wine mixed with blood, or the herbs used as preservatives, or the psychological impact of believing in the cure. Medical texts were revised to remove gladiator blood references or replace them with acceptable substitutes. Galen's edited works replaced gladiator blood with martial herbs, a meaningless term that let physicians continue prescribing placebos. The underground gladiator blood trade persisted for decades after the official ban. Secret gladiatorial contests in private villas produced blood for wealthy pagans refusing to abandon traditional medicine. Criminal organizations staged deadly fights between slaves, selling the blood as genuine arena blood to desperate epileptics. Christian authorities responded with increasing violence. Bishop Ambrose of Milan organized raids on suspected blood merchant hideouts, publicly burning any blood products found. The theological position hardened. Using human blood for medicine became equated with cannibalism and demon worship. The last recorded gladiator blood merchant in Rome was executed in 438 CE, over 30 years after gladiatorial games ended. Marcus Sanguis, probably a professional pseudonym meaning Marcus Blood, was caught selling what he claimed was preserved gladiator blood from the pre-ban era. Whether it was genuine decade-old blood or fresh murder victim, blood remains unknown. His execution was particularly brutal. He was drained of blood while alive, with Christian authorities declaring it poetic justice. His blood was publicly poured into the Tiber River, while priests performed exorcisms to prevent any pagan from collecting it. Chapter 6. The Truth Behind the Blood Obsession. The Roman obsession with gladiator blood reveals fundamental truths about how societies process violence, death, and power through commodity consumption. Romans didn't just watch gladiators die, they literally internalized their death through blood consumption, making the arena's violence part of their physical being. This wasn't primitive superstition, but sophisticated psychological manipulation that served multiple social functions. The blood trade transformed arena violence from mere entertainment into participatory ritual, where every Roman could consume the strength of the condemned. Modern parallels are uncomfortably obvious. Today's athletes sell their sweat in expensive sports drinks, their blood metrics in training programs, their genetic data to supplement companies. We don't drink their actual blood, but we consume products that promise to transfer their athletic ability to us. The global supplement industry, worth $150 billion, essentially sells the same promise Roman blood merchants made. consume this essence of human performance and become more than human yourself. The fact that most supplements are as medically useless as gladiator blood doesn't stop millions from believing in transformation through consumption. The gladiator blood phenomenon demonstrates how societies create value through taboo violation. Gladiators were legally infamous, socially despised, often slaves or criminals. Yet their blood became more valuable than citizens' blood precisely because of their degraded status. The transgression of consuming blood from society's lowest members created its power. Modern celebrity culture operates similarly. We're fascinated by celebrities' bodily functions, their medical procedures, their physical transformations. The more private or taboo the information, the more valuable it becomes. Romans literally consumed their celebrities' blood. We consume their privacy. The medical placebo effect of gladiator blood was probably substantial. Modern studies show placebos can achieve 30 to 40% effectiveness rates for subjective symptoms. Epileptic seizures, being stress-triggered, might genuinely decrease if patients believed they'd consumed powerful medicine. The ritual of attending games, witnessing death, and drinking blood created intense psychological experiences that could produce real physiological changes. The disgust, excitement, and transgression of drinking human blood triggered massive endorphin and adrenaline releases. Romans weren't wrong that gladiator blood made them feel different. They were wrong about why. The gendered aspects of gladiator blood consumption reveal how violence and masculinity intertwined in Roman culture. Men consumed gladiator blood to gain masculine power, strength, aggression, sexual potency. Women consumed it to attract masculine attention or produce male children. The gladiator represented hypermasculinity, violent, powerful, sexually aggressive. His blood became liquid masculinity that could be transferred between bodies. This commodification of gendered violence persists today in how we market products through violent sports, action movies, and military imagery. We still believe violence can be packaged and sold as empowerment. The economic structure of the blood trade prefigures modern biomedical capitalism. Human bodies became factories producing valuable medical commodities. The poor and condemned provided raw materials for the wealthy's health. Gladiators were essentially biomedical livestock, their blood harvested like any agricultural product. Today's blood plasma industry, worth $25 billion annually, operates on similar principles. Poor people sell their blood products to pharmaceutical companies, serving wealthy consumers. The gladiator blood trade wasn't primitive. It was capitalism's prototype for commodifying human biological materials. The religious transformation from pagan blood consumption to Christian blood symbolism reveals how power structures adapt rather than disappear. Christianity didn't eliminate blood obsession. It monopolized it. Only Christ's blood could be legitimately consumed, only through church ritual, only producing spiritual rather than physical effects. The church replaced arena blood merchants with priests controlling access to divine blood. The transition from gladiator to Christ's blood maintained the fundamental structure, consuming powerful blood for transformation, while changing who controlled distribution. Modern secular societies have simply replaced religious blood with celebrity DNA, athlete biometrics, and wellness influencer body products. The ultimate truth about gladiator blood is that it worked, not medically, but socially. It created community among consumers who shared the transgressive experience. It reinforced social hierarchies by making elite bodies worth more than slave bodies, even in death. It channeled violence into controllable commercial transactions. It gave people agency over their health through purchasing power. It transformed the abstract horror of arena death into concrete personal benefit. The blood trade made every Roman complicit in arena violence while letting them benefit from it. They weren't just spectators, they were consumers of death itself. Understanding gladiator blood consumption helps explain modern phenomena like true crime obsession, dark tourism, and tragedy merchandising. We still want to consume death, just at safer distances. We buy serial killer memorabilia, visit disaster sites, watch endless documentaries about murder. We don't drink blood, but we consume death through media, transforming real tragedy into entertainment products. The Romans were simply more honest about the transaction. They knew they were drinking death and believed it would make them stronger. We pretend we're just interested in understanding violence while consuming it voraciously through sanitized media products. So that's the truth about Roman gladiator blood. Not a savage superstition, but a rational market that turned human death into medicine, beauty products, and power. The same civilization that built aqueducts and wrote philosophy was drinking fresh blood from the arena floor and calling it progress. They weren't primitives, they were entrepreneurs who built an entire industry around consuming the dead, and they convinced themselves it was perfectly reasonable. 2,000 years later, we look back in horror, but every civilization has its gladiator blood, the normalized practice that future generations will find incomprehensible. The Romans thought drinking human blood was medicine. What are we doing right now that will seem barbaric in the future? Subscribe for more histories we've sanitized and forgotten.